All right, our list group component is in a fairly good shape. When we click an item, it gets selected. But in a real-world application, quite often, something should happen after an item is selected. Perhaps we want to filter a list of objects, or maybe we want to redirect the user to a different page, so something should happen after an item is selected. Now, what happens is different from one application to another. There is no one-size-fits-all. So we don't want to implement that piece of logic inside our list group component, because then it's not going to be a reusable component anymore. So we need a mechanism to notify the consumer or the parent of this component that an item is selected. In this case, the consumer or the parent of this component is our app component. This is where we're using the list group. So when an item is selected, we should notify the app component that an item is selected. But how can we implement this? Well, that's very easy. So look at our props object. Currently, we have two properties, and we are using these to pass data to our list group component. Now we can add a third property, which is going to be a function. Now down here, when we select an item, we're going to call that function. With this, our app component will be notified. Let me show you how this works. It's really simple. So first, let's define the signature of that function. Let's imagine that we want a function that takes a parameter called item of type string, that is the selected item, and returns void. So it doesn't return a value. So here we add a property. By convention, we start with the word on, and then we specify the type of event. In this case, select item. This is just like the onClick prop that you saw earlier, but here we have onSelect item. So we have a property called onSelect item. The type of this property is a function that has a parameter of type string and returns void. Okay? With that, now we have a compilation error in our app component. How can I tell? Look, it turned red. Also, we can go to the top, under View, open up the Problems panel. So the TypeScript compiler is telling us that in the app component, we have forgotten to pass this prop. So once again, the TypeScript compiler is helping us catch a lot of potential problems early on. So let's go back to our app component. Now here we said onSelect item. We can write an inline function here, just like how we handled the click event earlier, or we can write a separate event handler. If you want to write a separate event handler, again, just like before, by convention, we start with the word handle, and then we specify the type of event, select item. Now we set this to a function with the signature that we just defined. So item of type string goes to nothing. Now here we can just do a console.log and print the item on the console. Now we can pass that down here, handle select item. Now the last step, back to our list group. Over here, when destructuring the props, we should pick the onSelect item property. And then when selecting an item, we should call this function. So we call this and pass the selected item, which is this item variable here. Now back to the browser. When we select an item, the app component is notified and it's now printing the name of the selected city on the console.